My guests at this time are the co-host and host, respectively, of the Mind of Meanie. It is Josh Chernoff and the Blue Meanie. Guys, welcome so much to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Hey, thanks for having us, man. Thanks for having us. It's nice to be referred to as the host and Meanie as the co-host for once.
Did I flip them? Did I? Because I had it written down here, and I thought I said it backwards.
No, I have no idea.
Okay, well, obviously Josh is here, Meanie's here. We got the whole crew together, and I'm very happy to have you both here. It's been so much fun watching you guys over the past several months really grow this Mindy Meanie brand. I got this great press release at the Patreon and this new alternative commentary thing you're going to be doing for SummerSlam over on Fight. I don't know. I'll throw it to you first, Meanie. I mean, it's your Mind of your Meanie. Talk to me a little about what the growth of the brand has been like for you and in the parts of it that you're enjoying the most right now.
People have always said, "Hey, Meanie, you should do a podcast." And I've always wanted to do a podcast, but when it comes to doing a podcast, you got to have a co-host,
right?
And just like in wrestling, I always said, whoever you work with is a representative of you, whether it's in a tag team or whoever trained you.
Sure.
I'm a representative of Al Snow. Al Snow broke me in, so if I do something good, they go, "Hey, your boy Meanie's doing something good." If I mess up, they go, "Hey man, what's your boy Meanie over there? He's messing up." I want the same thing in the co-host. So, I've been, thinking long and hard about doing this podcast, and over the course of 2 years, I've always found myself being interviewed by Josh, and with either Bill Apter or on his own and stuff like that, and we just had such a good rapport, and it was just like a matter of a blue light bulb going over my head and saying, "Hey, you know what? That Josh guy, he's pretty cool. We have a pretty good rapport. Why not?" And there was a moment where he was interviewing me for his fight show, and after the interview was done, he said, "Hey, man, I asked this question. I hope I wasn't a little too stiff on it." I was like, "No, man, that's cool." But that stuck out in my mind like, hey, this guy's thoughtful. He's not just going to say something and blur it out and essentially embarrass me and my brand. So
right.
We talked and we hit it off, and we're supposed to go into a professional studio and then start doing all this stuff. But then the apocalypse happened, and we're going to ride out. And he's like, "Hey, man, I think we should just go for it. I mean, there's so much going on in the wrestling world right now. We need to just start talking." And he's the machine behind us all. He got the whole ball rolling, and we did our first episode. It was all bubble gum and duct taped. With me, I always feel like I have to apologize for my audio on the first couple episodes because I was just using the gamer headphones and headset and stuff like that. But
sure, yeah, whatever.
The best part is just the. I feel like we've had like momentum, positive, moving forward, positive yards, like they say in football, positive yards. Every now and then we get a first down or second, 7 yards. We're almost there. And then we get over that and then we set a new goal. So we've been setting some goals and meeting them. And it's been so much fun. Josh has been a pleasure to work with.
And it's, that's the thing is, you've got this podcast up and off the ground here, but you guys do so many more other little fun things. Like I love the cartoons that you guys have going right now. I think this alternative commentary thing with Fight, we'll get to that here in just a little bit. But yeah, with the cartoon thing, I was very impressed. And I told you this online, Brian or Meanie, that I thought that I was surprised more people aren't getting into the cartoon game here. How did this all come about where you guys started working with animators to bring some of your stories to life?
I'll volley that one over to Josh because that was his brainchild.
Yeah, I mean, it was also my brother's brainchild, really. So my brother, he called me up and he's like, "Oh man, that story from this most recent episode, that was hilarious, and I can see that as like a cartoon." And we laughed about it a little, and then I was like, "Man, that'd be really cool." So then Meanie and I started talking about, okay, well, can we make this happen? We reached out to a bunch of different places, and it's just like, they're enormous companies. It's astronomical, the price for these things. And I mentioned it to my brother. I'm like, yeah, it was a fun idea. And he was like, let me look into some stuff. Let me see what I can do. And so long story short, he basically taught himself how to animate.
Wow.
And he just knocked it out of the park. We worked on back and forth with some graphics, and we had some other people help us out with graphics, and we went in and he just figured out how to do it. And then we trusted him with it, and he directed the whole thing. So he came up with those little cut scenes that we didn't even know was going to happen. And so I mean, I'd love to take a ton of credit for that, but that was really, really more my brother's brainchild, and he put that together. And I would love to lie and say was paid handsomely.
Yeah.
But then he called me out on it for lying. But no, he was a huge help with that. And I think it really helped to, we talked about like the Meanie had mentioned like the brand, but it helped to expand his brand and the Mind of the Meanie brand as being more than just Blue Meanie has a podcast.
Right. Yes.
That's what we want. That's really what we wanted to be able to do.
Yeah. And I think it was a very savvy, smart move on y'all's part. I think it's great that you guys are trying all these different things and like landing it pretty much every time. I've enjoyed everything I've seen you guys really do. And that brings me to this alternative commentary thing here. And again, I hate to volley it right back to Josh here, but Josh, you've worked with Fight quite a bit. You've been doing a lot of sideline, analysis for them and interviews and things like that. I know that the crew at Fight, they run a pretty tight ship. This is a little different for them to be doing, like using their services to do this alternative commentary thing. Talk to me a little about how this came together and what you guys want to do with this to make a really unique experience for the fans at SummerSlam.
So the way that it really came together was I got a call from Mike Weber from Fight, Mike, and really he was just calling to congratulate me on, I just had my third child, and he was like, hey, I haven't talked to you since, I wanted to call you about it. And we got into conversations, just catching up a little bit, talking. He was saying he just saw this past month's show, one of the shows I have on Fight. So to Chernoff, a little cheap plug there.
Right.
But he, and so we started talking, and I said, hey, I never talked to you. Why, how did you like what we did with the last AEW pay-per-view? Because as you mentioned, I was always kind of sidelines. Fight would send me to all the AEW pay-per-views or the big Dynamite shows, and I would kind of do for their international feed for the AEW Plus. I would stand there and, we're just hours away from doors opening and this, and I'd get some interviews backstage and then do stuff throughout the night, really just to hype AEW Plus on social media.
Right.
When it came time for this last pay-per-view, obviously there's no audience there, and Fight was not going to send me there. And so we had me kind of go around my house, and actually had Austin Gunn FaceTimed in so we could do like a little backstage interview. Okay. And so we had all kinds of fun little things. I'm outside of my house trying to find fans, like little stupid stuff like that. And we were talking about, I said, I thought it was kind of funny. I can come up with something else, but to then again for All Out, do the same thing again. Oh, Josh is back outside his house. It's like, you can only go to that joke so many times. And Mike said, what I'd love to do is just have you on camera just the whole time, but I think that might get kind of boring. And I agreed completely. And he's like, listen, if you have anybody who can do this with or whatever. I was like, I absolutely have somebody I can do it with. And I said, I'm like, I got this podcast with Blue Meanie. He's like, oh my God. He's like, why did I? He's like, of course. Yeah. He's like, do you think Meanie would want to do this? And so basically I talked to Meanie and he was totally on board. And then much like with, the cartoon or whatever it is that we're doing, we don't want it to just be like, we're on there talking about the pay-per-view. We wanted it to be something different. And that's where we came up with the idea. Meanie and I came up with the idea of doing alternative commentary, because it's really what it is. It's you can listen to us and you'll be able to get for SummerSlam an alternative commentary to the commentary going on for the show. So you can hear us talking about it. I mean, we're not going to necessarily, send them off the ropes, drop down, leapfrog. We're not going to call everything or maybe anything, but we are going to try and make it as entertaining as possible. And you never know what stories are going to come out of it. People Meanie's worked with or crossed paths with. And we're going to start that with SummerSlam. And, I guess spoiler, there's a good chance we're going to end up doing it for a pay-per-view a couple weeks later. But yeah, that's kind of the plan here, is just to have us in there, providing something extra, something just because again, a lot of people talk about how wrestling's so tough without an audience. It's really tough to watch. So our thought was, well, what if we give you just like an extra little thing, take your mind off of the fact that there's no audience there. And that's not to knock the commentary, the commentating teams that are doing these pay-per-views, but it's just something extra fun, another option. It's going to be free on Fight. So, this is just something you can put on your phone and have it playing in your earphones while you're watching the pay-per-view.
And so, yeah, Meanie, talk to me a little bit here about like what you're hoping to do with this. I mean, obviously it doesn't sound like you guys are trying to like replace the traditional play-by-play, but what are you hoping that fans get out of this and what you're bringing to the table watching the show with them?
Well, I've always been a big fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Mm-hmm.
So, true comedy fans here, all of us.
Absolutely.
And I want this to be a little bit of Mystery Science Theater 3000 meets ICP Stranglemania, maybe.
Okay. Oh, wow. All right. So, okay.
Mostly just in face paint.
Okay. Wow.
But anyway, shout out to the Juggalos and Juggalettes. No, seriously, this will probably be like an episode of me watching an event at the bar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
One of my, favorite things to do with Mrs. Meanie is go to our bar here in Philly, McCusker's, when it was open, and we watch an award show or we watch a sporting events, and we're doing our alternative thing just to pop the people in the bar. You know what I'm saying? So here we are. There's going to be a pay-per-view. Me and Josh, we have good banter, and we're going to have a lot of good banter when with whichever show we happen to work with down the line.
Yeah.
Starting with SummerSlam. And it's just going to be fun. We're not going to be cruel or make fun or look for mistakes or whatever. We're just going to say what comes to mind. And there's going to be a lot of toothpaste we can't put back in the tube.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
that's the fun thing about going live. Like that's, I think, we're most excited and fearful of.
Yeah.
But, to kind of step on Meanie's toes, the podcast from the very beginning, the concept was that we wanted you to feel like, you're on a car ride with us and just kind of sitting in on a conversation between friends. Like that was really the idea. And the idea of me saying, hey, Meanie, so whatever happened with that? And he can tell a story. That's kind of the same thing we want to have here is imagine, it's probably the best way to describe it, is imagine you're at the bar and, hey, you walk in, oh, Josh Chernoff and the Blue Meanie are there. You're super excited to see the Meanie. With me, you're like, all right. But yes, oh, there you go. I got some seltzer. But yeah, so the idea is who wouldn't want to sit next to the Blue Meanie and just talk about the pay-per-view you're watching? Like, how cool would that be to walk into a bar to watch SummerSlam and there's the Blue Meanie and you basically get to pick his brain. I get to kind of be that. I'm the audience in that regard, and I get to ask him questions and go back and forth.
That's cool.
I'm excited about it just to be able to do that with Meanie.
That's awesome. Well, I wanted to ask you guys a little bit about what will be here at SummerSlam. First of all, Meanie, I'll ask you, you've spent a lot of time, obviously, with the WWE. They're in a very interesting spot here right now with the pandemic. Before we even get to the card, like the location of SummerSlam is like a big thing right now. They're like word on the street, maybe Atlantic City, New Jersey. What do you think? Good idea, bad idea? What do you think will happen? What would you do with the location here this year for SummerSlam?
Your guess is as good as mine as far as the location, but I mean, I think they're kind of taking a page out of UFC's book with just. I think of just find a isolated location like a Fight Island or something like that, and have SummerSlam, so to speak. But Atlantic City would make sense because you're on the beach and stuff like that, and they've run Atlantic City. And for whatever reason, that seems to be the place where a lot of independents are running their shows now, which growing up in Atlantic City, I wish these shows existed when I was a kid. But, growing up in Atlantic City, I was like, man, I wish I had this many shows in Atlantic City,
Yeah.
But,
well, on that note, real quick, I hate to cut you off, but like
no.
GCW has been doing, they just did GCW Homecoming like a week or so ago. That was on Fight, right? I know GCW Fight very close. And then they're going to be back in Atlantic City here like in just a couple weeks here with their next show, Jersey Shore. I don't know if they set the, standard for WWE to be able to make this happen or whatever, but I would like to get your take on like GCW in general. I don't know, Meanie, if you keep up with them much at all, but like for my money, again, there will never be an ECW, but as far as like carrying on the mantle of that energy and an eye for talent and giving people a place to work, do you see some of that ECW energy at GCW right now?
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely a buzz about them. Brett Lauderdale and those the fellows over there at GCW are doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
I follow him on social media. I follow Brett. Brett's a good dude, and I'm really happy for him. You're doing good. When I'm like, man, how are they doing this? And somehow they're just pulling it off where, like, and I ran shows for a little bit, not to say I was like this master promoter, but with 3PW, I mean, just running Philadelphia, was a pain in the neck. I can't imagine they're taking these shows all over the country between Indiana, Atlantic City, all this stuff. So it's dizzying, and it's very admirable of what they're doing. So hats off to them. The more product, the better. They're entertaining folks, and they seem to have a buzz about them. And they seem, like I said, they have positive yards, positive momentum, and more power to them.
Man, Nick Gage, New Jack would have been great. What a confrontation. I don't know.
Nick Gage is the best, man. I almost just want to get one of his cameos just to have him say something to me. I mean, we're cool. We're buds as it is, but just to think of Nick Gage on cameo, it's just, it's amazing.
What is it? Transright? MDK? Transright? That was the one that went viral. I love Nick Gage so much. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, back here to SummerSlam real quick. There's a lot of stuff that's going on going into the show, but we'll talk about the main event first here. Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton. I guess I'll throw to you first, Josh, and I'll get some color here from you, Meanie. I mean, what do you think of this main event, Josh? Do you think that Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre has people on the hook? Are you excited for this bout?
I don't know if it has people on the hook necessarily. Great promos back and forth from them recently, but the reality of it is Randy Orton he's phenomenal. He's fantastic. And I think from a purely wrestling match standpoint, it's going to be a really good match. Randy Orton can have a good match with basically anybody. And Drew he is at the highest he's been so far. I think he is really, really coming into his own. I'm curious about like the styles of the two of them together. I think will really mesh well. I'm personally excited about it. I'm biased. I love anything Drew does because I've been friends with him forever. But I think him and having the opportunity for him to work with a guy like Randy Orton at a SummerSlam, I think is huge for him. And I think it's going to help and kind of solidify his title reign, which I think is unfortunately kind of, it's not getting the fanfare that it deserves because of the time period in which he's champion and the match, when you can imagine his match with Brock Lesnar had it been where it was originally supposed to be in front of that audience and him winning, just a completely different feel. So I think that having at least racking up some quality matches would be very good for him. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the both of them. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Randy Orton back in the main event, but honestly, he's Randy Orton. I think he's fantastic. So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. And what about you, Meanie? What do you want to see from these two?
Dude, if I wasn't in the business and I didn't have the network and I just had to, strictly buy a pay-per-view, I would buy a pay-per-view for this match just because both are phenomenal work. Yeah. But to me, I'm not speaking on anybody else, I'm a fan of both individuals as performers and as people.
Yeah.
Randy Orton's the best heel in the business right now. He's like a slow cooker, man. He's just, he's had all these years, in the business, and I can't think of a down period. Like some wrestlers have a down period. I've never really seen Randy Orton have a down period at all. But Drew McIntyre, the only bad thing about his reign is, the timing. When you see what he was doing to Brock Lesnar in front of an audience, I can only imagine, oh my God, at the Royal Rumble, I can only imagine what his title win at a proper WrestleMania would have been. And it's kind of heartbreaking to know that he's worked so hard to get to that spot. And it's literally in front of, just other wrestlers,
And that's the thing is, like, I know Josh says, we're going to maybe use Randy here to legitimize Drew McIntyre's run, but would you put the title on Randy right now? I almost feel like, considering the circumstances of fired up Drew McIntyre going after a psychotic Randy Orton, that sounds way more compelling to me than like Drew getting the Kofi Kingston win over Randy Orton that really kind of solidified his run last year, if that makes sense.
I'm a big fan of a champion having a run with a title. I grew up and my first world champion was Bob Backlund, and he held the world title for 6 years. So I'm not a big fan of the, the world title playing hopscotch or hot potato between two guys and stuff like that. I would like to see Drew get a little bit of a run here with the title. Of course, you know, maybe Randy gets it and then hopefully Drew chases back for it. But, you know, it's just like, you know, like my favorite baseball team's the Philadelphia Phillies, right? They won the World Series and everybody, you know, would make fun. Oh, they only beat the Tampa Bay Rays and stuff like that. And then the next year they're back in the World Series against the New York Yankees and then they lose to them. They're like, see, they lost to a legitimate team. Same thing here with Drew. I think Drew needs to have a world title win against, you know, I'm not saying any of his other opponents weren't legit, but you know, Randy Orton has this lineage of being champion. So to be champion, be a former champion that's had such great reigns in the past, Drew needs this win. Well, I won't put that pressure on him. I say I want to see him have this win.
Okay. And Josh, I know you wanted to jump in there too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I do think that if we had the tough thing with it, I like the idea of Drew chasing. Like, let's say Orton gets it, Drew chases, and Drew has the opportunity to win it back in front of a big audience and kind of redo, you know, kind of make up for what didn't happen at WrestleMania. The only problem is where we are in this climate right now is it's not like we can say, oh, well, there'll definitely be that big crowd come Survivor Series. So we'll just do this now. What happens, and God, I'm hoping, yeah, this isn't the case, but what happens if come Royal Rumble, we're still, you know, we're at the PC and like, you're like, okay, well, are we ever going to put it back on Drew or have we now put it back on Drew? So he's a 2-time champion. Both times we're in front of no one. Like, so that's where I'm almost, part of me almost says, you know what, keep it on him until we kind of get back to normal or some sense of normalcy. And then even if we're back to normal, let him lose it in front of a crowd. Let that crowd, you know, get that reaction of that heat from the crowd because he just lost it in front of them, and then let him win it back. So I think, you know, there are a lot of different ways you can go with it, but you know, but look, and you had mentioned before the idea of doing this on the beach. You know, that's something where I heard rumor that it's, well, maybe they wouldn't sell tickets, but it's kind of people could be there, or it's just a different atmosphere, which I do think would be cool. It would be very much like having like almost like a bash at the beach, kind of like a beach bash, if you will. But yeah, but it's an original idea. Yeah, so I think that hopefully we're going to see Drew hold on to it and just kind of continue on. I think this is kind of just a placeholder because Edge got injured. I think as far as what they're doing with Orton.
Yeah.
But either way, I think it has potential to just be an excellent match where people turn around and say, damn, that was really good. And you don't know what kind of chemistry can come out of that from the two of them. And then you're off and running in a direction you didn't even anticipate.
Yeah. And well, the other match I wanted to ask you guys about on this card was Seth Rollins, Dominik Mysterio just got confirmed this past Monday night. Like, I am really on the hook here. Like, emotionally, I feel like I'm more emotionally tied to this match than I am like a Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton bout, for a lot of reasons. I mean, I don't know, Meanie, what's it been like for you to watch Dominik Mysterio kind of come into his own here as this badass and get to tango with Seth Rollins on such a big stage?
It's been interesting to see the evolution of Dominik. When I first met Dominik, he was a baby. I had just left WWE, ECW had folded. I was doing independence. I did an independent show in Honolulu, Hawaii, and Rey Mysterio was on the show, and he brought his entire family out. And I met Dominik and Aaliyah, you know, and to see Dominik from when he was like up to my knee, now he's like taller than his father. And just to see how and he was there when I went back when they were doing the stuff with Eddie Granby and his father.
Right.
I was there for that run.
Oh, man.
It's just amazing. It's just weird. It's amazing to see somebody go from being a little kid to this grown ass man. And I'm excited to see how it goes. It'll be a great match. Dominik's trained with, the greats like Lance Storm, and he's been at the PC, and Seth Rollins, is a phenomenal worker. I think they're going to have a great match.
Have you personally been impressed by the work you've seen from doing the ring so far? Like physically, do you think that he hangs well with the big dogs?
Yeah, I think he does well. Yeah. It's just a matter of finding your sea legs in the business, you know, where, you know, when I was in ECW for 3 years, but you go to the WWE and it's a totally different experience and stuff like that. And you have to figure out the WWE way and find your sea legs in their environment. But like I said, he's been to PC, and, you know, working with Seth is, you know, probably a day off. So I think he'll do great. And I think he's been doing great, and I think he will do great.
Awesome. And Josh, yeah, any thoughts here on Seth Rollins, Dominik Mysterio heading into SummerSlam?
Yeah, I'm actually excited about it too. I'm really glad with Dominik. It seems like this was not something they rushed. And so often you'll see, you know, oh, Rey Mysterio's son is training to be a wrestler. Good, throw him out there. And you end up with, as we've seen in the past, a lot of other people who are just not ready to be out in front of the camera. I think that they really have taken their time with Dominik, and I think he has been, as Meanie mentioned, you know, with Lance Storm being in the PC, and I know that it was important to Ray to have him train with all these other people, but let's not forget that he also is Rey Mysterio's son. So be it the natural ability that's there, but also the psychology. I mean, you think that the two of them have never had a conversation about the psychology of wrestling?
Yeah.
So, you know, so I'm very excited about it. I think that what they've shown us of him so far has been really good. You know, whether it's a double leg takedown or whatever, you're not seeing a lot, which makes you kind of say, all right, look, I know he can take a suplex. I know he can get hit. I know he can, you know, take a guy down. What's a wrestling match look like for him? What are some of his move sets? Gonna, you know, break out some things from his dad? Maybe shout out to Meanie mentioned the Eddie Guerrero storyline. Maybe we're going to see something there. Or does he have a completely different style because this is like a 6 foot whatever guy as opposed to his father who's so much smaller than him. So all the way down to even his attire. I mean, you look at his dad has always been well known for having this great ring attire and a very recognizable package of Dominik, what he's going to be. But I like what I've seen so far.
Yeah. All right. Lastly, here I got to bring it up. It is not a part of SummerSlam, that it was part of the lead up to SummerSlam. Raw Underground. Meanie, is this a good thing? Does it work? What do you think of Raw Underground?
I just think they're bringing back No Holds Barred. It's like, I think it's interesting. You know, we're in weird times. It's 2020, so it's a very 2020 thing. I don't hate it. It's the first show. Well, it's the first segment of Raw Underground. So let's see where it goes. I'm not going to kill it, you know, right off the bat. So I thought, you know, night one was interesting to see what they, you know, how they evolve it, you know, week after week after week. Do they incorporate it into some of the pay-per-views, or do they have their own Raw Underground champion maybe down the line?
Okay.
Yeah, maybe this will be like a offshoot brand like NXT or something like that, where they can have guys do that. It's funny. People are like, oh, you know, a ring with no ropes doing MMA. But I remember back in the 90s, Al Snow and Taz were on a show in Japan for Koji Katal. And they had a ring with no ropes doing mixed martial arts and stuff like that. So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that meets Street Fighter. You know, it reminded me. I was like, man, this is like the movie No Holds Barred. This is great. I was waiting for the slimy the guy. I can't think of his name from the movie, but you know, to me the movie No Holds Barred was the precursor to the Monday Night Wars anyway. So you know, if you look at how they structured it, but I enjoyed it. I want to see what else they do with it.
Okay, cool. And yeah, Josh, Raw Underground. What did you think of this thing?
Yeah, I think we're so preconditioned, whether it's by ourselves or the internet or the WWE's past, we're preconditioned to just say, okay, this is horrible. Something's new, it's terrible. But the reality is they're trying to do something different. And whether it's just a spike rating or whatever, they're trying to do something different. And you have to give them credit for that. I've never liked the idea of presenting here's real fighting, and now back to pro wrestling. I think you can't, to me, that doesn't work. You know, how are we supposed to be invested in all the other matches we're seeing when you're telling us now, well, these guys are really fighting? Like, it doesn't work for me. It's different because I know this isn't like the Brawl for All, but that was one of the things I hated about the Brawl for All, was like, well, why am I supposed to be invested in anything else on the show if you're telling me that's all fake? And that, you know, so that's an issue I have with it. There were no, there's no backstory. We didn't really learn anything about it. And I would love to hear more of a story behind what this is, why we should be invested in a show like this. You know, when Josh Barnett was doing his blood sports stuff, you know, there was, even with no television buildup, you had an explanation for what this was. And I felt like that was lacking. But you never know, you know, 5 years from now, we could look back at a huge star and say, man, I can't believe it. But Raw Underground is where we were first introduced to him, where we first got, you know, where he first broke out. And so we don't know what their intention is. And I really, like I said, it's so easy for us to kind of look back and go, oh God, something new, something, you know, not well thought out. But I'm going to take that approach, kind of sit back, wait and see what happens. Wasn't thrilled with it, but I think that, you know, anything can happen. It can get better. So we'll wait and see. And then I'll come back on and bury it.
Wow. All right. Well, diverse takes there, and you'll be able to catch that and more over on Fight for SummerSlam, the free stream, the alternative commentary with Josh and Meanie. Meanie, I'll give it to you to take it home. Anything you want to plug, promote, put over here, get all the information out as we wrap up the interview here today?
Well, first of all, thanks for having us, and thanks for having both of us. This is a blast. You know, first of all, you can catch us on Mind and the Meanie every Monday at 6 a.m. wherever you find your podcasts. We're also on YouTube. You go to youtube.com/Mind and the Meanie, where we every week we upload an episode. If downloading an MP3 isn't your thing, you can stream us on YouTube. We're also putting up, besides alternative comedy, we're putting up alternative content on there between the Meanie tunes and the Mrs. Meanie run-in and a bunch of other cool stuff we have planned down the line, where hopefully we do some live streaming on there. But you can also go over to patreon.com/Mind of the Meanie, where for the low price of $3 and $5, we're going to give you some great fun content. We're going to have a lot of fun. You'll have the opportunity to watch us record the podcast as we do it. And then we'll also have some watch-alongs, some alternative commentary on anything from my career to music to sports to football. Hey, maybe when football comes back, we'll just stream ourselves watching an Eagles game. Who knows? But either way, we're going to give the fans something fun. So, yeah, just follow us on all that. If you want to follow me on social media across all boards, Blue Meanie BWO on Instagram and Twitter. And I'll volley it over to Josh.
Yeah, and Josh, where should people go find you as well?
Yeah, you can find me on social media at So Says Chernoff. Of course, I'm also, every month I have a show on Fight TV called So Says Chernoff. And then Mind of the Meanie, I don't know if Meanie had said it or not, but across all social media at Mind of the Meanie. Made it easy. It's Mind of the Meanie for everything. mindofthemeanie.com, youtube.com/Mind of the Meanie. And then, of course, also check out, we love to make shirts. So go to prowrestlingtees.com/Mind of the Meanie. We are turning out shirts like left and right. It is so much fun to do. But yeah, definitely wherever you get your podcasts. We're so happy we're on the MLW Radio Network, which is awesome to be a part of that. And yeah, wherever you get your podcasts, every Monday at 6 a.m. it drops, Mind of the Meanie. And I am just happy to be riding the Blue Meanie's coattails right into this interview and every week on Mind of the Meanie.